Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Ooh, a little breaking news edition of Purple Daily here. And I think we've kind of seen this news coming for a year. A year now, Judd? 12 months?
Yeah, I would say, since we basically said last July 24th, when he got arrested, if he can't plead out of like something to do with an alcohol-related offense, which he couldn't do, that it's going to be 3 games.
Yeah.
Pretty cut and dry.
Well, and that is the statement that just came down from, I'm just opening my inbox here, from an NFL spokesperson, that Jordan Addison has been officially suspended 3 games by the NFL for violating the NFL's substances of abuse policy. Jordan Addison of the Minnesota Vikings is suspended without pay for the first 3 games of the 2025 regular season for violating the NFL's substances of abuse policy, the league announced. Addison is permitted to participate in all training camp activities, including preseason games, without restriction. But then he'll be suspended for Week 1 Monday Night Football at the Chicago Bears, and then the back-to-back home games, Sunday Night Football home against Atlanta, and Sunday night, it's a noon Sunday game the following week against the Bengals, Judd.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It does, though, sort of back me up. I told you a couple days ago, Friday or so, he was real down in the dauber, had a weird practice. That might have been Saturday. Anyway, he tipped the ball. He tipped a ball that was a hard throw, but it was a nice throw by McCarthy, and it went into Theo Jackson's hands. And then Jordan went and watched the second team came on after that. So he went behind the line of scrimmage like players do to congregate. And he got down on one knee and was like really like he had his head buried like this in his hand, and guys were coming up and slapping him. So I would guess they were told at that point in time, because like the last couple days for him, and he's not a super charismatic kid, but it was like off the charts sort of moping. And I think it's why, but I mean, there's no spinning this. This really, really hurts. Justin Jefferson should be back for the opener. I mean, heck, he could be back from the hamstring strain before that. I've told you, though, with Jefferson out for the majority of camp, and they're obviously being very careful with Justin. And to be honest with you, I wonder if it's made easier by the fact that this forced Jalen Naylor into the number 2 role to get a look there. Because one, you're not going to rush Jefferson, who's had a previous hamstring problem in the other leg back. But second of all, it's given them a really long look at Naylor, who I continue to say he's a nice player, but he's a number 3. So this leaves you in a pretty precarious situation, and it's far less than ideal to have this for the first 3 games of your new quarterback's starting career.
Yeah, it's that's the thing about the first couple weeks of camp, even with the injuries, Jefferson with the hammy and Hawkinson, and now you got Darisaw, Fries working back in. They're kind of in and out depending on the day and the drill, and then Ryan Kelly, who's had a bunch of injuries and is on the older side for a center, like he's out now. So it's like all this inconsistency with who's healthy in the first 2 weeks of training camp, and now you can plan on that infrastructure officially being leaky for the first 3 games with Addison out. You know, he's super talented, and he's been one of the best number 2 receivers in the NFL, and he's also been one of the best touchdown scoring wide receivers, period, in the NFL. 19 touchdowns in the first 2 years. But, like, he's been a gigantic pain in the ass in the offseason. 2 straight off seasons, and if it wasn't for the first incident where he was, it was like the dog thing, right? Where I was driving 100 bajillion miles an hour because my dog was sick or whatever. Yeah. Which always kind of felt like a flimsy alibi. He's young, and there's a lot of immature NFL players out there that make mistakes, and this one has bit him in the ass, cost him a bunch of money, and is going to cost the Vikings one of their most important weapons the first 3 games of the year.
And again, it's going to, the problem is, so assuming that Jefferson is back and fine, which I'm going to assume because he's out on the field, he's not taking part in practice, but he's moving just fine. But now it elevates everybody up a step too. So that's the question. And then I mean, it's not like they don't have a plethora of wide receivers in camp, but are these the guys that you want on your active game day roster across the board, especially for three receiver sets? And I don't know if the answer to that is yes. So you very well could bring in a guy, a veteran, to work out and see what that guy has. The other thing, too, that's going to be a wait and see is with TJ Hawkinson pulling up lame in the Saturday practice, and now we don't know what that injury is or how long that might sideline him. If that's going to become a problem, and it's a leg problem, so you do not want to make it worse by rushing him back, is the use of two tight end sets to start the season not going to be as feasible as we thought? These are all things that you have to deal with in this league. The issue is that Addison's problem is a self-inflicted one. I mean, guys get hurt. There's every training camp. It sucks, but you go to every camp, right, Phil? And guys are hurt. And so it's like, well, that's too bad, but as a coach, you have to be prepared to roll with those punches. What is difficult about it is having to now roll with a punch of a guy who, for the second consecutive offseason, he kept his nose clean as far as I know this summer, but got himself into a predicament where he's going to have to serve a completely unnecessary suspension because it's got nothing to do with his injury status. It's got to do with a really, really bad choice, which is falling asleep on the highway right by LAX.
Well, and even like without this suspension, as you've been documenting through Judd's glorious camp notes the last couple weeks, Jalen Naylor has, he's shown some flashes over the last couple of years, but he's not a guy that really strikes you as a big upside guy. I mean, again, he showed some flashes, but he had some drop issues last year. Hasn't been that great in camp. Ty Felton is probably a year or two away, best case scenario, from being a really reliable number 2 or number 3.
Oh, yeah, he's not. Exactly right.
And Rondale Moore is coming off a devastating injury and trying to get his football legs underneath him. And quite frankly, like even before the injury, he hadn't really clicked in the NFL. So I have a take on this, but I'll throw it back to you for a second. In those 3 games, you hope that Justin Jefferson's hamstring is back and fully healthy. Mm-hmm. What does the rest of that group look like against the Bears on Monday Night Football, against Atlanta, another primetime game, and then a Bengals offense that is super high octane, even against your defense? Like, you're going to have to put up some points probably to beat that Bengals team. What does the rest of that wide receiver pecking order look like?
I think there is someone who's yet to come now. I think they're going to bring in a guy. I really do. Because if I look at this list, the list is in camp right now on the 90-man roster. It's Naylor, Rondale Moore, who can play, but he's more of a gimmick guy. Ty Felton, who the more I watch him, is not close yet. So I just don't see him. I don't see him being a viable option. He's going to make the team, I think. But would you want him in as your third receiver? No. Mm-hmm. Tim Jones, the guy that they signed as a free agent from Jacksonville, I think is going to make the roster. But he is a special teams guy. And he is a blocking guy. But he's not going to be a guy that you're going to have J.J. McCarthy throw the ball to a lot. And then the rest of the list is Dante Fleming, Miles Price, Jashawn Jones, who's impressed at times, Lucky Jackson, who's impressed at times, Silas Bolden, who's 5'8". He might be a practice squad guy, and Thayer Thomas. There is a guy named Robert Lewis, who I have not seen practice yet, but that's an underwhelming list, especially if you're going to use 3 wide receiver sets. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get news of a workout or two in the next couple days.
All right, I'm going to throw a few. So first off, like, I am excited long term about Ty Felton's skill sets, his productivity, his last year at college. Like I think there's a there. It is not a 2025 thing. You can't rely on that. Jalen Naylor, I think Jalen Naylor as a true 3, ideally a luxury like a 4, feels like a sweet spot there. And beyond that, unless we see a lot more from Rondale Moore, I guess I'm looking at the current group and saying you need another body in here.
Right. For
sure for the first 3 games, but even someone that would then slot in to fill a need as that number 3 wide receiver. And I'll give you, there's like 3 different tiers, I think, of options here. If you wanted, you could go back to old reliable Brandon Powell, who is still a free agent. He's only 29 years old. He does turn 30 years old in September. And a couple of years ago, he caught 29 passes for 324. And last year, he was mostly punt return guy. He caught 7 passes for 71 yards. He's diminutive. He's 5'8", but like he knows the system. They're comfortable with him. He's available. You can make that happen. There's a couple formerly big time options. One, Keenan Allen, that recently in the last couple days visited his old team, the Chargers. And Jim Harbaugh even commented and said, yeah, I mean, the door's wide open. We still love Keenan Allen. 33 years old, has spent his entire career with the Chargers until that weird Chicago Bears season last year. So I think for him, it's probably Chargers or nothing. Amari Cooper, also a formerly big-time wide receiver who's now he's like 31 years old. Productivity kind of dropped off last year between, was it Cleveland and then Buffalo, right? Didn't Buffalo trade for him? And so, that'd be an option. What I would do, quite frankly, Judd, is I would trade for Adam Thielen. I would make the call. This might ruffle your feathers. I would make the call the Carolina Panthers. He's been a nice little safety blanket for a young quarterback in Bryce Young. There are rumblings around the league and around the Thielen camp that he would love to get back to Minnesota to finish his career. And I think the Panthers would be open to it if they could get draft compensation for a guy that, he's already kind of served his time helping a young quarterback for a couple years. So you've got like 9 draft picks in 2026. If it's a 6th round pick or later, and I still have like 8 draft picks remaining, and I can get, he's not the same guy he was 5 years ago, but if I'm looking for a reliable set of hands, a route runner, a leader, a guy that's been working out with JJ McCarthy in the offseason, like they've gotten to know each other pretty well, and a red zone target too, he kind of checks a lot of boxes. And if he's like, if he's comfortable with where he is in his career and wants to play in Minnesota and play for a winner, when Addison comes back, it's a really easy slotting of Adam Thielen right back into that number 3 spot. If he's on board, I would trade a 6th round pick or later for him and get him back in purple.
I'd be curious to know what the relationship is between O'Connell and Adam himself, because as I brought up before, the thing with his wife got weird, and that was sort of reflecting, I think, what he was saying at home, but he was very careful not to say those things publicly or on Twitter. So O'Connell strikes me as the type of guy with a memory. So I'd be curious, like, if there was an internal disgruntlement there, which could cause some problems. It is interesting too, because the other thing about this is I don't know that Naylor deserves not to have the 3. Like, I think, if it's Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, I think you're fine as far as that depth chart goes. So I don't know that you would just fall back into a 3, but this is a weird situation because I also don't think that you want to go into the Bears game with Jefferson, Naylor, unknown. So nothing would surprise me at this point. I also wouldn't be surprised if they traded for and or tried to find someone whose name we don't necessarily recognize that they just like from scouting purposes. And because this team does have, like, they'll go through a huge list now, which goes beyond the household names that you just threw out. So it's going to be interesting. I just don't think it's feasible or a good idea to go into week 1 asking Naylor to be the 2, taking somebody. I mean, Lucky Jackson's been good, but is he a number 3 in a regular season? I don't know about that. He's an old guy. I think you probably have to come up with some type of fix because, one, you've got not a rookie, but he is essentially a rookie starting QB, and you're taking away a key guy. Defenses already were going to take away Justin Jefferson. They try to. Now you can get him the ball sometimes, but you also don't want McCarthy trying to fit every pass in there, and that's what makes Addison such a special player because he can catch. And now it becomes a real pain in the ass if you're a defense. This creates a conundrum. I mean, there's no question about it because this team is looking to win now.
And win early in the schedule.
And then that's what I was going to say. We've gone through the schedule. Like, you can't just sort of say, well, it's 3 games and we'll be fine. No, you're right. You need to, as I like to say, make hay. You need to make hay early because your schedule gets tough there. And if you're a playoff team, you can't afford to be like, well, we're 1-2, but we'll make it up in October, November, because you probably won't. So this creates a real problem. It was known it was coming. I don't know if it could have been addressed beforehand, but it'll be very interesting to see what this team does now. And I would not be shocked if they do make a move of some sort.
Yeah. So to that point about the early part of the schedule, they so it's at Chicago, home against Atlanta, home against Cincinnati, and then you get the two. Then Addison will be back for the European games against Pittsburgh and Dublin, and then Cleveland in London. I thought, and I was kind of baking suspension in, but now that we know it's official, maybe it changes the math here. Mm-hmm. I think the defense is good enough against two second-year quarterbacks week 1 and week 2, and then in Europe against two 40-year-old quarterbacks. I think the defense is good enough for this team to start 4-1, even without a lot of offense. But how do you think this Jordan Addison suspension changes the math, those first 3 games, those first 5 games?
Well, it makes the passing game that much more difficult because whatever you were going to do to Jefferson in doubling him, you're now going to probably up that ante. If Naylor is the 2, like what we saw last year, sort of him. I'm not saying he doesn't want to improve, and I'm not saying he does not work hard, and I think he slots in well. But he tips balls. He has some problems with contested balls. I mean, he can make catches, but if you're a defense, if you're the opposing team now, you're pretty comfortable with, okay, let's just take away 18, and the kid is playing QB, and especially, I'll go back to this, if Hawkinson's slowed. Now, the run game should be, as we discussed on Purple Daily earlier today, a much more viable part of this, and that will complement the defense nicely. So I'm not saying that the Vikings are a lost cause. I am saying you've now taken a really, and I think, really important chip out of the equation, and you're not talking about a veteran QB who's like, okay, I've got this. I mean, McCarthy's a smart guy, and I like him, and I like his potential. This is still a major thing, though, to sort of a chip to take out from him and say, well, now you're going to have to do it with, let's say, Addison is the 2 and perhaps a guy like Lucky Jackson is the 3 right now.
We may need a 53-man roster projection update here sometime soon. Maybe that's like a next week thing.
I was thinking about doing that next week after the first preseason game, especially now that the suspension puts him on whatever list he goes on.
Yeah, so he would not count on the 53 until week 4. Right, so this news
correct
officially opens up. So someone's going to make the team that otherwise wouldn't, because at least for the first few weeks, because of this suspension. Correct. Yeah, maybe it's because the game is on Saturday, and we'll jump on and do like a Sunday reaction to the game. So maybe Monday, Judd's camp notes, fire up a little 53-man roster projection.
You know, because I've got my first one, some definite tweaks there, and I feel like it's beginning to take shape, but I also feel the more we talk about this, with the veterans that this team has and the expectations, I'm getting more and more curious about where they need help that might not be here yet. Center, for instance, we talked about that. If Ryan Kelly can't play, I'm not convinced that you put Michael Juergens in and are comfortable there. Wide receiver, perhaps. Cornerback, as Doogie said on PD today, and he's sort of right. Cornerback is the one that we were all sort of hyper-ventilating about going into camp, and it's been fairly steady. DJ
Souptown says, "Oh my God, the sky is falling for Judd."
It's not good.
Are you a little panicky?
It's not good. Well,
we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, no, I'm more curious to see what the move is now.
Yeah,
I'm just more curious to see what the move is. I do feel now far more justified in wondering why Addison seems so odd the past couple of practices.
Yeah. Hey, if this means that they just run the ball more in the first month, and it's more Josh Oliver, TJ Hawkinson both out there at the same time with 12 personnel.
Yep.
Maybe a little more CJ Ham, and you play a little old school, play a little Michigan football. Well, just like JJ McCarthy is comfortable with, and you should be able to beat Caleb Williams, first year in this new offense, and Michael Penix with your defense if you run the ball, complete a few passes, and don't turn the ball over.
Well, how about some screens?
Bengals and Burrow, a little bit of a different story, and some screen passes.
Some screens now to, in particular, 33 and 27.
Yeah.
Jones and Mason. Yeah. And Mason continues to catch passes, so that's a thing. That's become a definite thing. That's no longer I wonder if they're going to do this. They are going to. And, I mean, it just makes it Everything you can do to make McCarthy's life easier is a really good thing right now.
Yep. Just ease him in, throw the ball 22 times, 16 of 22, a touchdown, 170 yards.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to carry it. It's going to be easier now to take Jefferson away right now and be confident. Also, I'm seeing comments here, and I got a tweet about if Jordan can appeal this now and get it down to 2 games or something. Usually in this league, what they do is they hear the appeal and then they suspend you.
So this process has already.
So it looks like the appeal process is likely, ordinarily, it's done.
Michael says, "How about Scary Terry? He's kind of pushing his way out of Washington."
Yeah, what's the contract? What's the salary cap hit? The Vikings are over the cap for 2026. Yeah. Not that can't be fixed.
He'd be your T. Higgins contract when you already have the Jamar Chase contract with Jefferson. And also, let's keep in mind, when starting in week 4, you get one of the best number 2 wide receivers in the league back. So it is, you're looking, you really just need someone for 3 weeks at minimum to come in and be a number 2. Is there someone internally, Jalen Naylor, that can step their way up? We'll see.
I'm trying to think into the future though, because I would not be shocked if Addison does not stay here past his first contract.
Yes, however, they with all of the players they added in free agency and some of the extensions, the Vikings are, I think, the most over the cap going into next year of any team.
Right.
And Jordan Addison is still really cheap for one more year. The 4th year is still really cheap on Jordan Addison. So
absolutely,
probably keep him around for another minute. But all right, there's your little emergency breaking news. We've seen it coming for 12 months, but it's official. Little 3-game suspension.
I knew it would be a news dump at some point in time. Team off today.
Yeah.
Tuesday, no access, and they've probably known for 3 days.
We need to free 3. Now we really need to free 3.
But he did it himself.
Oh.
He did it himself. This is self-inflicted. That's
Jordan Addison here for Lyft.
Yep.
Jordan Addison for Uber. Get 10% off when you use the code Addison.
More money
Free
that
3.
they can spend. I don't get that one. That is an interesting point.
Yep. So, well, you live and you learn, and the Vikings are going to have to learn how to move the ball at some point here with this patchwork, injured and suspended set of offensive players and a first-year starting quarterback. So he's Judd. More Judd's camp notes are coming. By the way, tomorrow on Purple Daily, we got our guy, Jeremiah Searles. So we have Write That Down predictions, and then a bonus episode, an O-line committee crossover with Jeremiah Searles. So it'll be fun to get his perspective on the first couple weeks of Vikings camp and the outlook and whatnot. And speaking of the O-line committee, an episode just dropped today. So tons of football content across the Score North network of podcasts. And don't forget to click that like button and the subscribe button on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We'll see you guys tomorrow. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.